Automakers started to report their Q2 2025 numbers to investors on official channels, and I think we're at a bit of a pivotal point here in electric vehicles in the United States, and I think it's worth putting together a quick video just to do a snapshot in time. Starting off here, this is slide number 7 from the investor relations deck from General Motors, and I'd like to shy away from trying to interpret these numbers as why consumer behavior is occurring the way it is, because I think I could really get into the weeds and read in the tea leaves, likely ending up with an incorrect assumption. So I'm just going to stick with the data. In this slide, again, slide number 7, is talking about how Q2 EV sales are up 111% year over year. And under the backdrop of General Motors electric vehicle history, which basically was the Chevrolet Bolt for the majority of history as far as volume sales go, they killed the Bolt just as they were bringing on these Ultium cars. And the narrative was that General Motors was not going to be able to produce numbers anywhere near what the Bolt was able to sustain. And actually it was gaining in popularity just as they killed it, which really didn't make a lot of sense to people. But it turns out apparently they knew what they were doing, because they are now selling more electric vehicles than they ever did back in the Bolt days. And I think what was going, well, again, let me shy away from trying to interpret consumer behavior by reading the tea leaves. Stick to the data, Walter. GMC with the Hummer and Sierra up 134%. That's not too remarkable because both those were in very low numbers last year. And specifically calling out LMR and LFP products coming online in 2027. Those are important because what we would be looking at is additional price reductions for electric vehicles to consumers, because the battery pack is the most expensive piece in any electric vehicle, and going to alternative chemistries like LFP and LMR are forecasted to dramatically decrease by thousands of dollars the overall cost it takes to assemble electric cars. And assuming you stay on smaller form factors, you can really get low-cost cars using those chemistries. The Chevrolet Bolt that is going to be hitting the streets either later this year or early next, we should start to see some of those around. And I think there have been some spotted, and the thought is that the tooling in the Kansas stamping factory is very similar to the old Bolt. So it's going to look very similar, but under the hood, it'll have an LFP battery pack powering it instead of NMC. So that's something to look forward to. But anyway, the chemistry starting in 2027 of LFP LMR. Most importantly, the brand that is now in second place in the United States for electric vehicle sales is Chevrolet, and that doesn't even include lumping on top of that Cadillac and GMC. When you lump all those together, it's way out in front and a very solid second place. But the fact that Chevrolet itself is able to surpass Ford is pretty remarkable. And then you add Cadillac and GMC on top of that, and GM is the clear leader in second place, and obviously Tesla in first place. The Equinox is the third best-selling EV year-to-date in the United States, behind the Model 3, Model Y from Tesla. So if you're looking for a non-Tesla, a lot of those customers, I'm guessing, are ending up in General Motors showrooms. Cadillac is now the #1 selling luxury EV brand and the 5th EV brand overall in the United States. So General Motors has the 3rd and the 5th best-selling, so Chevrolet is #2 and Cadillac is #5. So my apologies. Okay, so putting into perspective some of the numbers that are coming out of General Motors from their investor relation deck, General Motors is having a notable success with their electric vehicle lineup. Can't really be summarized any other way. Electric vehicle sales are increasing. They're increasing significantly. They're selling more EVs now than they ever have in the past. Back in the Chevrolet Bolt days, they don't compare to the numbers they're currently selling now. And the Chevrolet Bolt is due out refreshed very late this year or early next. So when you lump on similar sales to the popular Bolt to what we currently have and the ever-increasing market share, they definitely have a bright outlook for electric vehicles in General Motors badges. These are the numbers provided by Kelley Blue Book, and the leading manufacturer is Tesla with 143,500 in Q2 2025, which is down 12.6% from Q2 2024. And their segment share, I think this is the most important number on this spreadsheet, it's 46.2. At one point, Tesla was selling more cars than everyone else combined. That changed late last year, and the trend continues that everyone else is slowly starting to take a piece of the pie and grow their EV sales and is cutting into the market share of Tesla. So we could argue that Tesla's numbers are decreasing for any one of a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into that. You can have your own opinions about why Tesla numbers are decreasing, but they are decreasing, and their market share is decreasing. However, if the question is whether or not electric vehicles themselves are waning in popularity, General Motors doesn't make sense to that narrative. Why are more people than ever buying electric vehicles from General Motors if electric vehicles are falling out of favor? It doesn't make sense. General Motors is a very middle-of-the-road brand of car sales. They're not, ultra elite. Yes, they have some ultra elite cars, but in general, these are people who are going to work 5 days a week, putting food on the table, and living paycheck to paycheck. Myself included. I'm not a super rich person, and I also drive General Motors cars, so I fit the stereotype all too well. Some other ones to call out here are Ford, 16,000. Here's the Chevrolet, 28,000 in Q2, just having a wildly successful, and that's just with 3 EVs, the Silverado, the Blazer, and the Equinox, of which I own one. Actually, I'm leasing one. Year-to-date sales, again, up 130% in Chevrolet territory, and that's remarkable, not because it's a large number and they have new brands. It's remarkable because it was thought the high water mark was during the Bolt heyday, when they had this wildly successful car, the Bolt. Everyone loved it. I don't think I've heard of a Bolt owner who was dissatisfied with the product. Obviously, it takes longer to charge the old Bolt than other electric vehicles, but people just love the heck out of them. Very reliable car and everything. And the fact that we're now 130% year-over-year growth in Chevrolet is truly a remarkable storyline that is occurring. Also, I own a Cadillac, and they have also had wildly successful growth. Cadillac has, let me go back to the previous slide, more than 1 out of every 4 Cadillacs sold in the U.S. in Q2 were EVs, and it was projected that at the end of 2025, 1 out of every 3 Cadillacs sold would be electric with a full battery electric drivetrain. And that appears to be the trend that is occurring, that towards the end of 2025, 1 out of every 3 Cadillacs sold in the U.S. will be battery electric. Where was I? Cadillac. Oh, yeah. So year over year, up 61.7% in electric vehicle sales. Now, they have added some additional models, so you could argue that that's might start to decrease. But even still, if we go into a sustaining period where 1 out of every 3 Cadillacs is a electric car, I would have to call that victory. At that point, it's basically electric vehicles have then conquered major OEM showrooms, because you won't be able to walk into a showroom in the United States and not be able to purchase an electric vehicle. And that is really what we were looking as electric vehicle enthusiasts to be able to say. And by 2026, I think across the United States, every Cadillac showroom will have at least one battery electric inside for customers to look at, and multiple in inventory in order to sell. So there's that. And then obviously Chevrolet with its Silverado EV, the Equinox, which is very successful, the Blazer, and the linchpin in the future, which will be the Chevrolet Bolt reinvented, will be selling like hotcakes, I'm very confident. So the future looks bright for General Motors. Some of these other companies, there's been a lot of talk over at Toyota and Subaru. Right now, their numbers are small compared to their overall numbers, but there's multiple brand models getting released, so these numbers should start to increase. And obviously, we've got tariffs occurring, messing these numbers up to some extent. When I say messing, I don't really get into the politics of automotive production, so whether or not there's a tariff here or a tariff there or whatever. Really, my main concern with tariffs is that we don't have access to Chinese-made cars, because I personally say let the zombies in the wall. And if we have Chinese, and personally, I don't think I need to be protected against the Chinese government subsidizing my automobile purchase. I'm fine with the Chinese government subsidizing my automobile purchase. If I can get a $10,000 car for $200 because the Chinese government is subsidizing it, perfectly fine with me. You don't have to protect me from that. So I don't know. Maybe it's short-sighted and it's overly selfish. I don't know, but this is a capitalist market, so I'm perfectly fine with capitalizing on the Chinese government subsidizing my automobile purchase if they so choose. So I don't know about the whole unfair trade practices and the foreign entities of concern classification and things like that, but regardless, they seem to make reliable cars. They're doing well in Russia, and stands to reason in Europe, and BYD is doing well in the UK, from what I understand. So it stands to reason that should they be given a fair shot, they would do well in the United States as well. And my opinion is let them. Anyway, another thing to call out here that I saw was Rivian is down 22.4%. So I'm not sure how to interpret that, nor am I going to try to, but it should be noted that Rivian is on a decline in a similar trajectory as Tesla. So there is something to be said there, and I'm not sure exactly how to interpret that, but it's kind of strange that in the electric vehicle market, Tesla, Rivian, and where is Lucid? Lucid is up 10%. So of the three pure play EV manufacturers, Lucid, Rivian, and Tesla, two of the three are on a downward trend, and one of them is on an upward trend. However, the OEMs seem to be on a mad increase of major year-over-year growth. It's just a very unusual story to tell, and we've never been at this point in electric vehicles. It's always been the outsider trying to nip at the heels to drag the insiders along, and now it almost seems like it's flipped, which is very unusual. So, strange times in which we find ourselves. Regardless, I thought this was remarkable enough in order to put into a video. Food for thought. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.